The message arrived at 11:47 p.m. One photo, no name, no explanation. And after Emily looked at it, she stopped breathing, because sitting in the corner of that picture was her husband, the man who had just texted her 10 minutes earlier saying, "Working late again tonight." Before we continue, I want to ask you something. If someone sent you a photo that could completely change your relationship, would you open it? Or would you ignore it and protect your peace? Tell me in the comments. And if you enjoy emotional stories with twists, life lessons, and endings you never see coming, subscribe and join us. Now let's continue. Emily and Jason had been married for 11 years. Not perfect years, but good years. At least, that's what Emily believed. They had built a quiet life together. Saturday grocery trips, movie nights, coffee every morning, small routines, small moments. Nothing dramatic, nothing extraordinary. But lately, something felt different. Jason had been working late more often. At first, Emily didn't think much about it. He worked in project management. Deadlines happened. Busy seasons happened. Life happened. So when he came home exhausted, she never asked questions, until small things started becoming impossible to ignore. The late nights became every night. The phone suddenly stayed face down. Messages arrived and disappeared quickly. And when Emily asked simple questions, Jason gave simple answers. Too simple. Big project. Long meetings. Just tired. Always busy. Always somewhere else. Then one evening, while Jason showered upstairs, his phone lit up on the kitchen counter. Emily wasn't trying to look, really, but the screen lit up directly in front of her, and for a second, she saw only 3 words. "See you tomorrow." No name, just a number. Her stomach tightened. But then Jason walked into the kitchen, picked up his phone, and smiled. Not at her, at the screen, then quickly locked it. Emily noticed. And once you notice something, it's hard to stop noticing it. 3 days later, Jason kissed her forehead before leaving. "Working late tonight." Same words, same smile, same routine. Emily nodded, but something inside her felt unsettled. She couldn't explain it. Not yet. Then later that night, her phone vibrated. Unknown number. One image attached. No message. Emily opened it and immediately felt her heart stop, because in the background of that photo, under warm restaurant lights, wearing the exact same blue shirt he left home in, sat Jason, smiling. Emily stared at the photo. Her hands suddenly felt cold. No. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe it was a work dinner. Maybe someone from the office had taken it. Maybe she was overthinking everything. She immediately zoomed in. Jason sat near the back of the restaurant, smiling, relaxed, not tired, not stressed, not like the man who left home saying he had another exhausting night at work. For a moment, Emily felt angry, not because he was there, because he lied. Then she looked closer, and something else caught her attention. Her eyes narrowed, because sitting across from Jason was someone whose face couldn't be fully seen. Only part of their shoulder, part of their hair. One hand resting near a glass. Emily leaned closer. At first she thought nothing of it, until she noticed the watch. Her breathing slowed, because she had seen that watch before. Not once. Many times. Silver band. Small scratch near the side. Blue face. No. Impossible. Emily quickly opened her contacts. Strolled down, stopped, and stared. Because 3 months ago, Emily had bought that exact watch as a birthday gift. For her younger sister, Rachel. Emily immediately shook her head. No chance. Rachel would never do something like that. Never. Rachel loved Jason. Not like that. As family. Besides, the picture wasn't clear enough. It could be anyone. Anyone. Right? Her phone suddenly rang. Rachel. Emily stared at the screen. Her heart started beating faster. Then she answered. "Hey," Rachel said cheerfully. "You okay?" Emily stayed quiet for a second. then asked carefully, "Where are you?" Silence. Just silence, for 2 long seconds. Then Rachel laughed nervously. "Oh, I'm just out with friends." Emily froze, because in the background, behind Rachel's voice, she heard something. Soft music, plates, people talking. And suddenly, Emily looked back at the restaurant photo, because she recognized the sound immediately. The same live piano music, the same place, the same restaurant. Emily sat frozen, phone still pressed against her ear. Rachel kept talking, but Emily wasn't listening anymore, because now her mind was replaying everything. The late nights, the hidden messages, the smiles at his phone, the photo, and now this, the same restaurant, the same background music, the same timing. Slowly, Emily ended the call, then just sat there, looking at the wall. Because sometimes, there's a moment before your life changes, a moment where part of you already knows the truth, but another part is desperately trying not to believe it. Emily grabbed her keys. No plan, no idea what she would say. She just drove. The restaurant was 20 minutes away. 20 minutes had never felt longer. Her heart pounded the entire drive. One thought after another racing through her mind. Maybe there's an explanation. Maybe Rachel is with friends. Maybe Jason is with coworkers. Maybe, but deep down, those maybes were getting weaker. The restaurant parking lot finally appeared. Emily parked across the street, hands shaking. She looked through the large glass windows. People laughing, eating, talking, normal life. Then suddenly, she saw him. Jason. Same blue shirt, same watch, same smile. Emily immediately felt her stomach drop, because he wasn't sitting with coworkers. He wasn't alone. He was sitting directly across from someone. Rachel. Emily stared, couldn't move, couldn't breathe. No. No. Rachel leaned forward. Jason said something, and both of them laughed. Laughed. Emily felt tears building in her eyes, because she wasn't just seeing her husband. She was seeing two people she trusted most, at the same table, keeping the same secret. Then suddenly, Jason reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small box. Emily's heart stopped. A box. A small velvet box. Rachel looked shocked, then covered her mouth. Emily's entire world collapsed, because only one thought entered her mind. He's leaving me. Emily sat there staring through the glass. Everything around her suddenly felt distant, muted, slow. The small velvet box sat between Jason and Rachel. Rachel still had her hand over her mouth. Jason was smiling. Emily felt tears sliding down her face, because in her mind, there was only one explanation: betrayal. 11 years. Gone. Slowly she opened the car door, stepped out, and crossed the street. Her legs felt heavy, almost numb. Part of her didn't want to go inside, because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. But another part of her needed to know, needed to hear it, needed to end the questions. She pushed open the restaurant door. The little bell above it rang. Jason looked up first, and immediately, the color disappeared from his face. Emily? Rachel turned around. Her eyes widened. Emily! Silence. People around them kept eating, kept laughing, completely unaware that Emily felt like her entire world was falling apart. Jason stood up quickly. Emily, wait. Don't, she whispered. Rachel stood too. No, please let us explain. Explain? Emily looked down at the velvet box, then back at them. Explain what? Nobody spoke. For 2 painful seconds, nobody said anything. Then Rachel slowly picked up the box and handed it to Emily. Emily stared at it, confused, because now, Jason wasn't looking guilty. He looked terrified. Rachel wasn't looking ashamed. She looked emotional. Slowly, Emily opened the box and immediately froze, because inside was not a ring, not earrings, not jewelry. Inside was a tiny silver key. Attached to it was a handwritten note. Emily's eyes moved across the paper, and suddenly, her heart stopped. because written in Jason's handwriting were the words, "For the nursery." Emily looked up slowly, completely confused. Nursery. Then Rachel's eyes filled with tears, and softly she whispered, "Emily, we've been planning your surprise." Emily stared at the key, then at Jason, then at Rachel. Her mind couldn't catch up. Nursery? What nursery? Jason slowly stepped closer. Not too close, just enough, because he could still see the hurt in her eyes, the tears, the confusion, and suddenly, he understood exactly what she must have thought. "Emily," he said quietly, "I need you to let me explain." Emily didn't speak. She simply stood there, holding the small silver key. Rachel wiped tears from her eyes, then smiled nervously. "You remember 6 months ago," she said, "when you told me you stopped looking at baby rooms online." Emily frowned, because of course she remembered. Very well. After years of trying quest doctor appointments, hope, disappointment, they had stopped talking about having children, not because they didn't want one, because talking about it hurt too much. Jason looked down. "There were nights I stayed awake after you fell asleep." His voice cracked slightly. "And I kept thinking about how much you blamed yourself." Emily stared, because she had blamed herself, quietly, for years. Jason looked at her, eyes filling. "So I started planning something." Emily looked confused. Rachel smiled softly. "The late nights weren't work." Jason nodded. "They were meetings, appointments, paperwork." Emily blinked. "Paperwork?" Jason slowly reached into his pocket, pulled out an envelope, and handed it to her. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Then suddenly, everything around her disappeared, because across the top of the page, she read, "Adoption Approval Notice." Emily stopped breathing. No way. Her eyes moved down the page, again and again, then looked up at Jason. Tears immediately filled her eyes, because suddenly, all the late nights, all the phone calls, all the secrecy, all of it finally made sense. Jason smiled through tears. "I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted to give you hope again, and I was terrified I'd ruin the surprise." Emily looked down at the little silver key in her hand, then back at Jason, and suddenly, she realized something painful. For days, she had been preparing herself for betrayal, when the truth had been love. Emily couldn't stop staring at the papers. Her vision blurred, not because she couldn't read them, because of the tears. For a moment, nobody spoke. The restaurant around them disappeared. The voices, the music, the people, everything faded away, because after years of disappointment, after years of pretending she was okay, after years of quietly carrying pain she never wanted Jason to see, something impossible had just happened. Hope came back. Emily looked up. Jason was staring at her nervously, actually, terrified, because even after everything, he still wasn't sure how she would react. "Say something," he whispered softly. Emily stared at him, then suddenly laughed through tears, not because something was funny, because emotions sometimes become too heavy to come out any other way. "You idiot," she whispered. Jason blinked. Emily hit his arm gently. "You absolute idiot." Rachel started laughing. Jason looked completely confused. Then Emily wrapped her arms around him, tightly, and suddenly, Jason finally started crying too. Real tears. The kind people try hard not to let anyone see. Because for months, he had carried this secret alone. The meetings, the paperwork, the calls, the late nights, the fear that something would go wrong, the fear of getting her hopes up. And now, he didn't have to carry it alone anymore. 3 days later, Jason told Emily he wanted to show her something. They drove across town, stopped in front of a small house. Emily frowned. "What is this?" Jason smiled. "Come with me." He handed her the little silver key, the same key from the restaurant. Slowly, they walked inside. Emily looked around. Empty living room, fresh paint, quiet rooms. Then Jason led her toward one closed door and smiled. "Go ahead." Emily looked down at the key, hands shaking, then slowly unlocked the door. Click. She pushed it open and immediately covered her mouth, because inside was a nursery. Soft blue walls, tiny books on shelves, a rocking chair near the window, small stuffed animals, little stars painted on the ceiling, and above the crib hung a framed note. Emily walked closer slowly, tears falling again. Then read the words, "Some dreams take longer." But that doesn't mean they stop coming true. Emily turned around, looked at Jason, and in that moment, she realized something she would never forget. Sometimes fear creates stories in our minds, stories that aren't real, stories built from pain, from insecurity, from old wounds. But love, real love, often works quietly, behind the scenes, without asking for attention. Moral of the story: not every silence hides betrayal. Not every secret hides pain. Sometimes people hide things because they're protecting something beautiful. And sometimes, the truth we fear the most becomes the blessing we never saw coming. Have you ever misunderstood someone's actions and later discovered the truth was completely different? Tell me in the comments. And subscribe for more emotional stories that stay with you long after they end.